Today we are going to talk about something very basic, the art of resume writing. You know, companies receive hundreds of resumes for one single position every day, which means each of the resume gets about 30 to 45 seconds to catch the person's attention. If not, the recruiter is just going to move on. Which is why it is so important to create a first impression with an impactful resume. Hi everyone, my name is Somi. I'm an IIT Delhi and ISB Hyderabad grad, and for the last 8.5 years, I have been working in management consulting and banking. And on this channel, I share my job and college experiences so that it can help some of you guys. Over the last few years, I have shortlisted so many resumes for different positions, and I think now I have an eye for how to browse through resumes very quickly. So I can tell you from experience what are some of those key points that recruiters are going to look for in your resume before they move on. There are really two things to a resume. One is the hygiene factor, how good your resume looks before the person has started reading through it. And that creates a first impression. And once you have created the first impression and piqued the next person's interest, that is when they are going to actually look at the content of your resume. So let us first look at the hygiene factors. What's going to create that first impression on your resume? Number one, don't make your resume more than one page. Say all that you have to say in that one page itself, and trust me, it is more than enough. Even for people with like 10 to 15 years of experience, I know that a few software engineers usually tend to have longer resumes. I guess that's because they have to explain a little bit more about their projects in detail, which is okay, but most of the others like you and me should put down everything we have to say in one page. Secondly, no orphan words. Now, if you don't know what orphan words are, when you're writing a sentence, say for instance, it goes to two sentences and you have like 2 or 3 words in the next line hanging around. And then the rest of the space, real estate on that paper is just empty, which formatting wise doesn't look really good. So what you need to do is try and reduce words and keep it to either one whole line or move it to 2 full lines. Don't leave a lot of white spaces here and there on the one page that you are writing it in, because too many orphan words make the template look very messy, and वो देखते ही पता चल जाता है how much effort you have actually put into making that resume. Thirdly, put all your stuff in reverse chronology. What that means is the latest stuff, the most recent stuff should come first, followed by the second most recent stuff, and so on and so forth within each of your sections. And that's important because whenever companies are hiring you, or maybe MBA schools are hiring you, what is most important to them is what you have done in the last 2 or 3 years, not what you have done before. So the more recent, the more important it is, and that's why it should come up higher in your resume. Fourth, always mention the dates of whatever you're writing in, and if possible, a start date and an end date so that people have an idea of, for example, if it's like a project or an internship, how much time you have spent within that. Or if it is work experience, how long have you worked for that company? Fifth, and this is so basic and yet I see so many people missing it, put your name, put your email ID and put your phone number. नाम तो सब अपना डाल देते हैं, but a lot of people miss the phone number and the email ID. How are you expecting people to get in touch with you? So definitely don't miss out on that. Okay, now let's move on to the actual content of your resume. What it should contain and how you should write it so that when a person actually starts reading it, they are still interested and they want to know more about you. What are the different sections of a resume? Number one, you should definitely put in your education. Secondly, there should be a section on projects and internships, especially if you are a fresher, and or WorkX if you are an experienced professional. Thirdly, do you have any academic achievements? Do you have any certification courses that you have done? So these, depending on if it is suitable or not, can either go into the education section or you can have a separate section for it. If you're a fresher, then it's better to have a separate section for it, because if you don't have work experience, then you can only prove your worth or the things that you have done through some of these stuff. And then the last section is about all the things that you do outside work. It could be extracurricular activities, it could be leadership positions that you held. It could also be academic things but outside your coursework. For instance, maybe you took part in a case competition, or maybe you were a part of a robotics club. You can highlight it over there. By the way, I have shared one of my past resumes in the description box, so if you're interested to see how I wrote that and if you're interested in getting a template, check the link in the description. Now let's talk a little bit about what goes into each of these sections. Starting with education. Of course, you're going to add the basics like which college you went to, what are the degrees that you have. If you have a major and a minor degree, mention both. And a lot of people ask me whether you should include your GPA or your grade or not. Now it really depends. There's no hard and fast rule over there. But I would say even if you have like an average GPA, definitely mention it, because if you don't mention it, it looks like you're hiding something. And this is all the more important if you're a fresher and if you're sitting for the college placements. If you're an experienced professional, then yeah, no one is probably going to look at your score from your college. Also, if you have any college specific awards or achievements, maybe you were a gold medalist in your college or a dean's lister or something like that, you should include it in here as well. Next section, we are talking about your projects, internship, work-ex, etc. Now, this is where it gets a little tricky because it's not as straightforward anymore, and the way you want to write needs to be impactful. What you want to highlight here is project by project, not a lot of details on what the project was about, but more emphasis on what your role was, what you did in that project, and secondly, what impact it had or what was the outcome of your work. Typically, I follow a framework. I have 3 lines for every project or thing that I want to explain. The first line usually has a little bit of context. For example, I'll say something like strategy project for a banking client, helping them to reduce business costs. Then in the second line, I usually write about what I did. For example, something like led a team of 4 to build a financial model to help client project their revenues and build different scenarios. The third line now needs to be about what impact it created. This is where it is always helpful to put in some numbers because numbers make the impact very tangible. But I do understand that in some cases you might not have a number, in which case it's okay to sort of qualify whatever impact it was. But something along the lines of helped client make 15% additional revenue on XYZ. Also, if you or your work was recognized in some way through an award or an achievement, it's good to mention over there as well. This same framework goes for your last section, which is the extracurricular and the leadership positions as well. Especially the leadership positions, you should always mention what you did and what impact it had. In the normal extracurricular section, you can probably write most of your achievements or what you were a part of. But if you're writing something like you were a part of a club, then it's just a very minor point. Rather talk more about what you did as a part of that club. That as a part of a robotics club, I took part in a national level robotics competition and maybe got like a 2nd or 3rd prize in it, whatever be it. But if you just write that you were a part of the robotics club, then it is not as impactful. I think overall I've covered most of the points that I had to cover, but one thing you should always keep in mind is when you're writing your resume, go through the job description or whatever role you are planning to apply for in that resume and try to, customize each resume to each role that you're applying for, because some of the roles may be looking for leadership positions. This is when you highlight more of your leadership skills within those 2-3 lines for each project. While if it is a role which calls for more of your technical skills or your functional skills, then you highlight those things. And yeah, that's basically it. Again, if you want to get a template or if you want to get an idea what a good resume looks like, check out the link in the description. This is actually one of my real resumes that I've used in the past. So definitely feel free to check that out. And hope you guys liked this video. If you did, hit the like button and definitely please subscribe. There's a red button below the screen. All you have to do is just hit it. That's it. With that, I'm going to see you next week. Till then, bye.